All right, the next assignment here, the next section in the book is section 8-8, 8.8. It's entitled Special Products. And in this section, there's really only two kinds of problems you're going to get. They're going to look just like this. We're going to talk about this one first, one on the left here first, and then we'll come back and talk about this one. But this, when you see something like this, x plus 3 squared, notice the square is applying to everything in the parentheses. And unlike working with monomials, we don't just simply square each one of these. This is not equal to x squared plus 9. Note that. It's not equal to that. We don't just square each one. We have to use the process that we had in the last section. X plus 3 is actually, the whole thing is multiplied times itself. So you really have to jump from here and write it this way. And maybe you can just think it that way and multiply it out in your head. We're going to try to work on that. But this is not equal to just squaring each one of these. We're going to square this by square the whole thing, the binomial, by actually foiling it. You have to foil this one. So this would be x squared, first. Outer is 3x. Inner is also 3x. And the last terms is 9. Now when I add these together, I get 6x plus 9. Now it's important to notice here that these two middle terms in this special, this is why it's called special, in this special situation, those two middle terms are the same. And that may allow us to go ahead and do these in a in our head a little bit shorter. But if we can't do them in our head, we'll just write them out separately. Let's go take a look at another one, a little more complicated one. All right, let's take a look at this one. Now, once again, this is not just squaring the first term and squaring the last term. We have to multiply every term times every other term, because this is not 16y squared plus 25. We have to rewrite this as two things multiplied times each other. Okay, so there's one of them, and here's the other. Now we will FOIL this. FOIL it. First, 4y times 4y is 16y squared. The first term's the same. Outer would be 20y. Inner would be another 20y. Remember I said those were going to be the same. And last, 5 times 5 is 25. Notice that the first and last terms are the same, but there was no middle terms. Those are missing. That's why this is wrong. We've got to get those middle terms. So now we're going to add these together. That's 16y squared plus 40y plus 25. Let's do one more of those, and then we'll see if we can help you see a shortcut. Okay? You don't have to learn the shortcut, but we're going to see if you can learn it. Okay? All right, I picked a simple one here to start with. I'm going to try to show you how to do this, obviously, the long way. And then I'm going to see if we can do it the shortcut way. And some of you will pick this up pretty quick. Some of you won't. Again, the shortcut is not required. It's not required. It is helpful, and especially as we get into the next chapter. But the long way to do it, we're going to rewrite this as x plus 8 times itself, x plus 8. Okay? All right, foiling. We're going to FOIL. F-O-I-L. Here we go. X times x is x squared. 8x is outer. Inner is another 8x. And last would be 64. So I have x squared plus 16x plus 64. That's the correct answer. Now, how would you do this in a shortcut manner? Well, let's rewrite the problem here. I want you to see something here that will help us. We know that the first term and the last term are very predictable. The first term would be x times x, or x squared, and the last term was 8 times 8, or 64. And you can see that right from here, but what's missing is those middle terms. We also know that the two middle terms are exactly the same. They're the same term, and we're going to add them together. Well, what did we get for our middle terms here? Well, the middle term, 8x, was simply the product of 8 and x. 8 and x. 8 and x. And in fact, if I just take this term and multiply it times this one, that's the same thing as taking this term and multiplying it times this one. So I'm just going to go 8x and another 8x. And I can see that it's going to be like such. In other words, I could just find that the product of these two and double it. 8x plus another 8x gives me 16x. Let's see if we can go a little bit farther and do a problem here completely in our head. Okay? All right. Let's see if we can do this one completely in our head. Well, we know that it's really x plus 7 times itself, but I'm not going to write that here. I could write it here, but I'm not going to write that out. I'm going to try to do this completely in our head. Okay? Well, we know the x times x is going to be x squared, so I'm just going to square that first term. And we know the last is going to be 7 times 7, which has to be 49. So the real question is, what are those two middle terms, which are the same? Well, it would be x times 7 and another x times 7, or 7x plus another 7x. I'm just going to get 7x and double it. 7x doubled would be 14x. So there we go. We can move straight to it. You'll have to practice a few of these. Let's do another one here. How about 2x minus 3 quantity squared? Okay. Now I could write it out. That's the long way. Or I could just know, okay, if I square the first one, I'll get 4x squared. And if I square the last one, negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Then the middle terms, which are both the same, would have to be the product of these two. Now pay attention to the sign. 2x times a negative 3. Now why are we multiplying those together again? It's because 2x times a negative 3 can be done this way, or we could just take the shortcut way and multiply those two together. We're really not multiplying these two together, but we can see that it's the same numbers we'd be multiplying together. So 2x times a negative 3 is a negative 6x, doubled, negative 12x. Negative 6x, negative 3 times 2x is a negative 6x, doubled is a negative 12x. Now that's the way to kind of do it in your head. Again, until you get that figured out, just keep writing it out like this until you can figure out how to do those in your head. The shortcut is not a requirement. All right, let's take a look at the other special case. All right, you're going to find special cases that are going to look like this. This is the sum of two terms and the difference of the same two terms. So x plus 5, x minus 5. Or I could have 2x plus 3, 2x minus 3. Or I could have 3y minus 5 and 3y plus 5. See the pattern? They're just opposites. We call these two terms conjugates of each other. I'm not going to use that term much, but I might slip every once in a while. These two terms are conjugates of each other because the word conjugate in Spanish it means to play with. Well, these are two play partners. They kind of play together. And when you see two conjugates like this, then there's a special way to multiply them together. Let's go back up and look at the top one again. Okay, conjugates. Well, what do we get if we FOIL this? I'm going to show you the shortcut here in a minute, but here we go. First, x times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. 5 times x is 5x. And 5 times a negative 5 is a negative 25. There you go. Now as always, we go ahead and combine the middle terms. But look what's going to happen here. These two terms in the middle are opposite signs. And they go out. It's 0x or just 0. There's nothing there. These are out. So we end up with x squared minus 25. Now these problems are extremely easy to do in your head. If you recognize two conjugates like this, then you don't worry about the middle terms because they're going to go out. Let's try one. Okay. How about 2x plus 3 and 2x minus 3? They are conjugates. And if I know that middle term is going to go out, I can just ignore it. But let's do it just for to prove it. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times negative 3 is a negative 6x. 2x times a positive 3 is a positive 6x. And 3 times a negative 3 is a negative 9. Notice they're opposites again, and that's going to go out. So I simply get 4x squared minus 9. Now, if we try to do this the shortcut way, we can just ignore those middle terms. This only works when they're conjugates. So let's try this one here. How about 3x plus 7, 3x minus 7? Okay, I'm going to know, because they're conjugates, I know that this is going to cancel out the middle term. So 3x times 3x is 9x squared. And 7 times negative 7 is a negative 49. Now, the big problem that we have with this is people will want to always do this. This only works with conjugates. So if you try to do this with other problems, you'll be in a world of hurt. The only time those middle terms go out is when these are opposites. They're conjugates of one another. Let's do one more here. 4x minus, let's go 1 times 4x plus 1. They're conjugates. Oh, the middle terms will go out. 4x times 4x is 4x squared. Minus 1 times 1 is a negative 1. Now the middle terms, I'm not even going to show them here. It's negative 4x and positive 4x. You can see that. So here's our answer, 16x squared minus 1. Now that shortcut, again, is not absolutely necessary, but it's going to pay off in the future. By the way, this thing is called the difference of squares, and that comes in handy in chapter number 9. You're going to need that. That's called the difference of squares. And why? Because this is a perfect square, 16x squared. 1 is a perfect square, and there's a difference sign between them, subtraction. The difference of squares. You don't need to know that much yet, but in chapter number 9, you're going to need to know that terminology. So, all right, let's take a look at your homework for tonight and the next night. All right, here's the next couple of assignments. These are about special products, 45 and 46. Those go pretty fast because after you learn the shortcut, it makes it a lot quicker. Now, this is the last section I'm going to teach you in this chapter. If you have questions about something, please email me with your question, or show up at the tutoring times on Friday. I'll also take some questions on Wednesday at the Zoom meeting if you need it. And so I won't be talking with you again until after this chapter test. I might, other than those Zoom meetings. So do the review also. That's number 47, 48, and 49. Your Chapter 8 test is Wednesday, May the 6th at 7 p.m. I'm willing to take questions from anybody if you have them. Please make sure you do the homework in preparation. These tests are coming up pretty quick, and I will work with you anytime you have a question. All right, take care.